الأندلس وبعض فترات الحكم العثماني وظهور التعددية فيها، وأشار أخيرا إلى التعددية أو محاولة التعددية في المملكة العربية السعودية في موضوع الحوار الوطني الذي تناول مجموعة من القضايا والمجالات التي تؤكد على مسألة التعددية.
So let's now move to Canada and look at Canada as, of course, the second largest country in the world with a very low density in population. In that sense, similar to Saudi Arabia, that has a large amount of space with a relatively small population. And we are now 32 million people in Canada, so a little more than here in Saudi Arabia. And we have, since 1990, a steady income, or inflow, rather, of 225,000 immigrants from around the world, and which, of course, is based on an old immigration tradition within Canada. But initially, the immigration in the previous decades of the 20th century, as well as in the 19th century, were predominantly from European background. And we find that the immigration is primarily for economic reasons, as well as for family reunification. And this immigration inflow is in part because the natural demographic growth, the birth rate, in other words, in Canada, is actually not very high. And so because of that, there's a slowing pace of the growth in natural population, and therefore an aging population. And the need is to therefore bring in a younger population to sustain population growth and for economic development to continue, and also to sustain some of the social benefits of an aging population. There's a last trend, or next to last trend, is increased urbanization, especially around those three major cities of Toronto, the largest city in Canada, Montreal, the second one, and Vancouver. But the population is relatively concentrated into the center of the country, i.e. in the two provinces of Ontario and Quebec, where there's about 60% of the total population.
ننتقل الآن إلى كندا، ويقول أن كندا لديها كثافة منخفضة في السكان ومساحة واسعة، وتشبه في ذلك المملكة العربية السعودية، وعدد سكان كندا يبلغ 32 مليون، أكثر قليلا من السعودية. ومنذ 1990 وهناك هجرات متواصلة، يبلغ عدد المهاجرين 25 ألف مهاجر سنوي. 250 ألف 225 أوكي 225 ألف مهاجر سنوي، وهو تقليد قديم. وفي القرن الماضي كان معظم المهاجرين من أوروبا، وكان ذلك لأسباب اقتصادية أو تجمع عائلي، أفراد عائلة واحدة أو العائلات تتجمع. وهذه الهجرات أيضا سببها أن النمو السكاني منخفض، والنمو السكاني الطبيعي الذي يساعد على الازدهار والاستفادة من الثروات قليل. فلإبقاء هذا النمو كان لابد من فتح المجال للهجرة. وأيضا أن المجتمعات الغربية كندا أو غيرها تواجه ازدياد نسبة كبار السن. وذكر أن سكان كندا يتركزون في مناطق ثلاث محدودة، ويصل هذا التركيز إلى 60%.
So just a little reminder for those of you who may not have the map of Canada freshly in your mind, and just a reminder that the population of Canada, 90% of the population, in fact, is in the southern bottom, within 100 miles of the United States. So the rest is pretty, as some would say, empty. Others would say, no. There are the presence of many different smaller groups, especially indigenous communities, and therefore there's a richness also in population, although small in number, in further areas away from the United States.
قل 90% من سكان كندا يتركزون في الجزء الجنوبي المجاور للولايات المتحدة الأمريكية، وكثير من الناس يقولون أن بقية المناطق فارغة، ولكن الحقيقة أنها ثرية بوجود السكان الأصليين الذين يقطنون بعيدا عن الحدود مع الولايات المتحدة.
Language is probably the most important identity marker in terms of Canadian politics. If you're in the United States, it tends to be race. In Canada, the equivalent would be language. And here you have differences over 50 years on the left in terms of Canada. The English population remains as the mother tongue, as the spoken, is about 60% of Canada only has a mother tongue of English. And the blue is the French, which decreases over 50 years in comparison to the black part, which is other languages than English or French. And that is due, of course, to the steady increase in immigrants from a variety of different countries around the world. Interestingly enough, many of the Quebecers feel that that decrease in the French concentration overall in Canada is a source of worry, is a source of fear that the French language and the French culture potentially could disappear in the long term. And if we look at the figures on the Quebec side, which is only within one province, you notice that the question would be, well, why do we have to fear, since there is more or less 80% of French in Quebec, which remains steady over the same 50 years, right? But the reality is that the reasons why in 2001 the figures of 80% remain more or less the same is because in 1976, a government, a pro-independence government, came into power and voted the Bill 101, which required from that time onwards all immigrants whose parents were not English-speaking, in a nutshell, that they had to send their kids to French schools and not to English schools. So by 25 years later, you have the results that you did indeed keep the same amount of French spoken predominantly as a mother tongue and as certainly a language of work. But it's the English, the green in this case, on the right-hand side, the green which decreases. So it's the Anglophone population, relatively speaking, in Quebec, which decreases at the expense of the allophones. And what's interesting today is that the third most important language spoken in Quebec is Arabic.
يقول اللغة من أهم عناصر الهوية في كندا في السياسات الكندية، فإذا كان في أمريكا المشكلة الأساسية العرق، ففي كندا اللغة هي المحددة للهوية أو من أهم عناصر تحديد الهوية. وذكر أن اللغة الإنجليزية يتحدثها 60%، لغتهم الأم هي الإنجليزية، وأن اللغة الفرنسية تنخفض، وسبب ذلك أن الزيادة مستمرة في الهجرة، وأن كثير من سكان كوبيك الفرنسية الذين يتحدثون الفرنسية قلقون من انخفاض المتحدثين بهذه اللغة. وهناك تساؤل لماذا القلق مع أن 80% من سكان كوبيك يتكلمون الفرنسية، وأنه في سنة ذكرها 1976 صدر قرار حكومي يفرض على كل المهاجرين الجدد أعتقد في منطقة كوبيك أن يرسلوا أبنائهم لتعلم الفرنسية، فليس هناك قلق. ولكن هناك مع موجات المهاجرين جاءت لغة جديدة ثالثة لتنافس اللغتين الأساسية، وهي اللغة العربية.
Now, in Canada, we think that there are two official languages, but if you look at what is the percentage of the population that is bilingual, we may have a surprise. In Quebec, it's a little more than 40% of the population is bilingual, but that means that there's still 60% that is not, most of whom are French speakers, who therefore don't speak English very well at all and cannot function very well. Then you've Brunswick and Prince